Welcome to Feed Your Mind Wellness. I'm Dr. Sandy Scheinbaum, and today we're here with Dr. Dena Mendes. Dena is a naturopath and holistic chef, and she's the author of a new book called Kicking Cancer's Ass. I'm so excited that she's here today to talk with me about it. Hi, Dena.
Hi, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Dena, I read this book and was so touched by how you have this combination of being a fighting spirit and have had a way of approaching this that you're now sharing with a much wider audience.
Well, thank you. It was important for me. This was very much a labor of love. It had been really about 8 years in the making, and I just felt like so many people from all around the world had been calling me and saying, when they would call me and say, my mother has cancer, I have cancer, my brother has cancer, I could hear the desperation in their voice as they would be saying, you know, what do we do next? And as I was telling them and giving them all the tips and everything that I knew from combating the ravages of chemotherapy, of radiation, of surgeries, they would say, do you have a step-by-step guide? Because it's so much, it's so overwhelming. It can be just, you know, too much information thrown at somebody at once. So with that in mind, I was trying to create that step-by-step life preserver, so to speak. So when the shit hit the fan, which is my first chapter, they would know what to do first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And to the point where if you're going through chemotherapy and you're having burning of the esophageal lining, which happens so often, or radiation and burning of the skin, or acid from the chemo that's coming up on you, or whatever that is, you can actually go to that place in the book and find the remedy that can help fix that, that can help alleviate some of the ravages. So I was inspired to do that, you know, to help others. And then, of course, it was a cathartic experience for me too as well.
So when the shit hit the fan, you describe this as Alice going down the rabbit hole. Can you talk more about what that was like?
Yeah, well, I have always, you know, my brother was a designer. He was a famous bead artist, and I worked for him designing. And even though I couldn't really use my hands in terms of creating, I was never the artist, but I would see things very colorfully all my life. And I would always see things in play format. Matter of fact, I wrote a musical called Cancer the Musical. And it's while I was going through this, when the shit hit the fan, and it was such a surreal, almost proverbial falling down that rabbit hole of surrealness, it all would play out for me in music and in choreographed dances and in, you know, the lingering cell, like the tango, one less cell, oh baby, one less cell. It was all these kind of very, you know, animated, theatrical scenes that you go through in the hospital. Like somebody said to me today, you know, when we go to the hospital for chemo, we're sitting there with all these colorful tubes in us with the blue light emanating from the TV sets, right? Brain on the box. And they serve you candy and soda and cookies. That in itself is almost, it's theatrical, it's funny, it's almost amusing. Yes. So that to me was so inspiring that I wrote the play, and I added in the book a piece from the play, from the musical that I wrote, which was that whole falling down the rabbit hole and finding yourself in a completely absurd world.
And at that point, you feel like you're out of control, but you emphasize taking control, being the one who's in charge of your treatment, in charge of your doctor, and not giving in. And that's a way to deal with the fear. So can you describe how you did that?
Yes, I feel like so often, you know, since Marcus Welby, MD, we believe the men in the white coats to be gods, to be the all-knowing, all-being, you know, truth. And even when they're not in their egos and they admit, we don't know everything. We didn't study this side, so we don't know everything. With that being said, like I said, I have this client I was talking to this morning, and she said, no, you know what, after reading your book, we decided not to do any more chemotherapy, and that they weren't taking into consideration that my husband, who has pancreatic cancer, is unique as his fingerprint. He's as unique as his fingerprint. So he's changed his entire life, emotionally, physically, mentally. He's eating, he's walking the walk now. He's changed his diet. He's changed, his thing was stuck throat chakra. So he's, singing, and he's oming, and he's, he's yelling, and he's, and he's doing things that he never did. His doctor said to him, your numbers are unbelievable, what are you doing? But yet they wanted to give him more chemo even though the cancer's gone. She said, we chose not to do it since we read the book. I said, I think that's great. What I inspire people to do is not to rebel against doctors, because there's a reciprocation, there's a give and take, there's a meeting of the minds, there's a coming together, and there's a balance of both. But to empower your own self with that sense of self, that intuitive prowess that so many of us have completely negated or lost, and as you change the food you're eating and you clear away the mucus and the mucosa off the brain, right? The biggest thing I hear from people when I detox them, and even if detoxing is just changing their food, is, could I have bionic vision and hearing now? With that, you start to see things crystal clearly. And when you're going through this, you can then say to doctors, you know what? No, that doesn't work for me. You get that power back. You claim your power back in terms of self-healing, where you feel empowered that, you know what? I'm changing my food. I'm looking at this emotionally. I'm doing yoga. I'm breathing. I'm feeling powerful. I'm feeling energized. And no, do I need now a doctor to bully me? Absolutely not. So you will choose differently in terms of healthier relationships with your doctors. And those healthier relationships are, have respect for where I've come from and what I know and my newfound knowledge. And now we're going to work together, and I'm going to be an active participant of my healthcare process.
Absolutely, and that's the best type of medicine when it's partnership, because we know from research studies that it's the difficult customer, the difficult patient that has a great survival rate, and someone who just says, oh, I'm in your hands, doc, whatever you say, doesn't often fare as well. It's the old saying from Marshall Fields, give the lady what she wants. And,
well, that would be me.
So, yeah.
I went in the other day and the nurse said, you're famous. And I said, really? Is it because of my book? She goes, no, we didn't know you wrote a book. She goes, but because of your 11-year history, we're shocked you're still alive. And I'm like, well, good, keep being shocked. Yeah. I mean, it was just, that was incredible. When she started looking, they were reading off my history. I said, don't read it to me, I don't want to know. Mm-hmm.
Well, you've blended the best of the Western approach, so you didn't go without chemotherapy or radiation, but you've also brought in integrative, alternative approaches, and probably most importantly was your spirit. And you talk a lot in the book about fear, and facing your fears, but also not giving in, being fearless. Can you comment about that?
Yeah, I comment in the book, there was this one specific time that I was constantly, it was like the boogeyman under the bed. And constantly, when you get diagnosed with cancer, and this one particular client, I'll go back to him, who's been calling, when I talked to him for the first time on the phone, and you can sense this, and as being a cancer survivor, of course I know it right away. So like you said, I know the troublemaker, I know the person who's weak and meek and just gonna sit back and be the victim. And I like to inspire people, grow some guts, I say it in a different way, and get out there and kick some ass. So I can say honestly that I was one of those people where listen, you hear you have cancer, it's very scary. And it's like a neon sign, it's right there, it doesn't just go away. So there would be times where it would be gripping. And fear, of course, is kidney. So I would be, which depletes kidneys and adrenals, so I would be fearful a lot. I'm gonna leave my kids, oh my gosh, then you start to ruminate, and then you start to think more and more. So the gift I got was, my brother actually passed away. And I talk about this in the book. He came to me through a dream to show me where he went. And I was very blessed and lucky because after that, I never had to fear again going away to the next plane, which was beautiful and incredible and amazing. And I felt really that I had been there with my brother. So I was very much ready to kind of let go and just embrace life and just enjoy each moment for what it was. And we're alive this moment. So let's do everything to empower ourselves and taking our power back. And even if that is watching movies that make you feel empowered, like I used to watch Laura Croft, Angelina Jolie, which I love the heroine and that she's kick-ass and so I would be like, yeah, that's me, you know, and you just get in this frame of mind where you feel empowered, and whatever it took, whether it was kick-ass music, kick-ass movies, whatever that took, all those things were empowering, and so it was like pieces of the puzzle. So I felt very much that as I started to empower myself in every aspect, mentally, emotionally, physically, that I was able to let a lot of that go. I can honestly say that now I wouldn't be able to work with people with cancer every day if I didn't have such a keen sense of my survival, that I'm good. And it's come back.
Sure.
I mean, I've had it like in my neck. Okay, my son even commented and he goes, "That's unbelievable." He goes, I can't believe that the doctor could call you and tell you, "Oh yeah, you have a node in your neck," and you just go remove it and go on with your life and like nothing. I go, "Well, it hasn't killed me yet, has it?"
Your son had a great quote
Yeah.
about laughter, the importance of that.
Yes.
Can you describe
he's
that?
a definite old soul, Jet, my son. He came home, he was 5 years old. I mean, my husband had cancer first, so they dealt with that. Then at three or four, I got it. So they've been through a lot, my kids. And Jet came home at 5, he goes, "Mom," and this is just how he used to talk, "Mom, I read a study today." I said, "Really?" That in itself made me laugh my butt off, because I was like, "You read a study?" He goes, "Yeah, it says if you smile and laugh, you'll live longer. So every day I'm going to come home and tell you a joke." The most amazing part of that is I tried to send him to Second City, but just like his mother, he's lawless. He doesn't like to follow rules of anyone else. But he's a complete comedian to this day. Makes the whole crowd, the whole party laugh all the time. He's witty and funny, and so I laughed so hard being with that kid. So that was a gift he brought home to me. And every one of our kids, I think, brings a different gift. So Paris, my daughter, would come, she became very adept at cooking the way I liked it, and healthy eating and healthy cooking, and she and I kind of partnered up in that area. My son, who's like, "I'm going for the hot dog." But you can't force yourself off on others, which is funny, because a client came to see me from New York recently, and she said to me, she had lung and bone and liver cancer, and she said, "Have you ever failed in fixing someone or helping someone?" And I said, "No, I don't fail if they want it. Sadly, not everyone is going to make it." And I write about this in my last chapter. So sometimes, it's the time to move to the next plane, and we know that. I mean, obviously, all you've studied and read and done yourself. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I've actually helped people prepare that are leaving. I'm just not ready to leave yet.
Yes.
So.
And you talk a lot, and what you've just described is moving into mindfulness when you face your cancer, when you face the moment, and when you are, whatever is going on, and when you talked about being aware of this very moment. You're still alive now, and that's exactly what I do when I work with people as well, focusing on a present day moment of awareness. That's mindfulness. And you've used that a lot to actually look at the cancer. At one point in the book you described that, how you can look at that, but then at the same time you push it away. You don't own it as part of you. When you talked about not wanting to hear side effects that doctors or nurses might be rattling on about.
Right.
So
right. That's funny, because every time you go in for something, they're like, "Do you have this?" I'm like, "No, don't," Tell me anything.
Yeah.
I never got the neuropathy. I don't get none of it. I don't accept it. Don't get it. Don't want to hear it. If I'm having an issue, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Which my doctor's so used to never hearing from me that I literally never hear from him. I mean, I said I'm the most low maintenance patient they have. But, you know, again, that's all using natural things and natural foods. And food is the first line of defense, which I talk about in my books. And I never claim cancer. When I hear people say, my cancer, I'm like, absolutely not. It is not my cancer. It is the cancer that catapulted me into a health awakening experience or opportunity. That's really what I say about that. So, yeah, no, I don't like to claim it as my own.
Wording is so important, and
so important.
And that wording from someone else talking about a side effect is going to plant that little seed.
Oh,
and,
for sure.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I can remember the time where how I got this was I slammed my breast in a car door, and I had a trauma-induced tumor, which is what? Inflammation.
Yes,
and then I had a few other inflammatory response disorders after that. The breast milk thing. I mean, there was like if you read the book, you'll know completely. I don't want to get into it here, but definitely my natural doctor then said to me, I'll never forget this, you're going to be high risk for breast cancer. And that was it. Put it in my head, and I always knew, just like I know and say, oh no, my doctor goes, you want to remove your left breast? I said, no. He goes, why not? I go, my left breast will never get it. He goes, how do you know that? I said, no. Lefty doesn't, this is the play, I did conversations between two breasts, it's actually funny, but it's, my left side, never has cancer come to my left side. Never. Doesn't have the personality for it. My left side is very easygoing. Even my left breast sagged a little, it was a half a size smaller. It wasn't, the right side was I'll be all things to all people, I'll heal the world, I'll do everything. It just was the side to take it on more. You know, it's the giving side, it's the masculine side. And then my left side was just this kind of like easygoing, everything rolled off the left side, you know. So I was like, nope, won't ever get it in the left side. What I realize about the difference is that women, we have this great gift. We have the gift of, most of us, believe me, I've worked with women who don't, but it's that whole opening the throat chakra and letting it out and speaking it and saying what you need. So when you go to a class, like a yoga class, a qigong, talk. I'm looking for someone. I'm looking for someone to work on me. Do you know anybody? Do you know anybody good? I'm looking for someone. I'm looking for someone. Help me. I'm looking for someone. Men can never stop and ask for directions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's, you know, we need to.
So right. Yeah.
I mean, men have to work a little harder at asking for that help and asking for what they need. We are used to that. We're cross-pollinators by nature, you know. Our nature's being cross-pollinators.
Sure. And every benefit can also work to our disadvantage, so we have that as a strength, but it can also be a weakness. And you talk about how the caretakers and women with breast cancer are often caretakers a little too much.
I love how you led right into that. So, you're good. Yes, absolutely. By nature, I come from, and there are books on this, and I probably would write another book on just the emotional components of cancer. For sure, part of the reason I ended up with any of it was slamming the breast in the car door, anger, liver, anger, frustration, or resentment, right? All this side, the liver, in my neck, it's the liver line. So definitely there's huge emotional components. And when people call me and they say to me, I had one woman who called me with a female cancer, you know, everywhere in her female organs. And right away over the phone I could tell she was not enough in her feminine side, very masculine. And then when I met with her, didn't want to be touched. And then she was born with an extra Y chromosome, which was so interesting. And I could tell right away. I was like, you didn't have your babies naturally, did you? She goes, no, I adopted. It was so, it's interesting to see the emotional components with the different types of cancer. So breast is the mothering, nurturing, right? So, and then it's my right, I always ask right away, is it your left side or your right side? The receiving is the left, the giving is the right. So my whole life I had addicts around me. And I still attract that. So I know that my nature is to be this major caretaker and giver, and I'll give till I'm bleeding, you know? And a lot of us do that, especially as women. And I have to be very careful. It's a fine line. And I used to give all this away for free, and of course heal, 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 and give, and never know my worth, and never ask to even get paid. Now people pay me to be crazy, to give advice. But I have definite, Eckhart speaks about it, which I love, the pain body. Our pain body attracts that which we know, attracts that which we are used to. So I was used to a lot of trauma and pain and suffering my whole life. And changing the brain synapses, changing your mind about it. I don't deserve this cancer. I don't deserve pain and suffering. I don't deserve to attract people who just are going to suck me and drain me dry. Is at work. That's a whole. So I wish when people come to me, like the most recent immersion that I had, I do these immersions for 2.5 days. I wish I was like her, where I could take out white flour and white sugar and white bread and change my whole diet and be fixed, because that's. She's been living on that her whole life, and you see such a huge difference for her. She went back and her numbers are elevated and everything's amazing. For me, I could eat greens till the cows come home. That's not my issue. Mine is an emotional component left. So until I went to my natural doctor once and said, oh my gosh, I need to find the key to this like Alice in Wonderland.
Yes, exactly.
It's again back to Alice in Wonderland. I'm looking for the key. Now I'm too big. Now I'm too small. You know, when am I just right? And it's trying to find that balance and trying to, really. So everybody's got to be their own detective and figure it out and bring those pieces of the puzzle and try to put the puzzle together. It's a Rubik's Cube.
Yes.
We're a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, and balance is the key. There's an old saying, which I love, the remedy is in the dose. Nothing is midside, and too much is not good, but it's some type of balance. And you talk a lot about the ways that this diagnosis can be a gift. And can you comment about how people can see this as a very life-changing event in a good way?
Yes, well, exactly this, what we're talking about, Sandy. I mean, just even this alone, getting to know thyself, getting to gain that new sense of thyself, learning to heal thyself. These are all these gifts, and as we kind of get to know ourselves and go through this health awakening process, or this health awakening opportunity, that in itself is the gift. And then if you're able to then take that and share it with others, like I worked with a woman once, and I knew she wasn't going to stay long. I knew she was moving on to the next plane. And I said, but you're not here for you. You're here for, her daughter was in a wheelchair and very sick. And the daughter was so hungry to learn it. She was young, and she was sticking around. And I said, we're here for her. You're here for her. Yeah. And so, not that everyone's leaving. I mean, by the way, I've had people who come to me, and then they heal them. They're healed, and they're able to share that with. We talked about sharing with our kids.
Yes.
And then one day they come back and they tell us how to do it, because your daughter's telling you, Mom, this is how to do it now.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, sharing with. I call it, it's fairy dust, and then you sprinkle a little here and a little there, and then they come back and and they help their their neighbors and their sisters and their family. So I love how it spreads. It's contagious, and that's the gift. And the gift is that you even if you're not supposed to make it, and you're leaving this earth plane, that in itself is also a gift. Can also be the gift, and it's harder, much harder, when you think about that for children, versus an adult. But learning to let go and balance and change your whole life, turning yourself inside out is the gift.
Yoga was very influential, and you're actually a certified yoga instructor as well.
Yes,
yeah,
which I don't really use in terms of teaching regular yoga.
Right.
I just,
But the philosophy of yoga, I stay on your own mat. I love to tell people how to do that.
Yes.
And to just focus. And even as you evaluate where you are and with someone with cancer, that you're not going to look at somebody else and start to compare.
Exactly.
So,
well, I used to love when people would call me and they'd be like, my neighbor, my best friend's sister's neighbor had the exact same thing as you. And I'm like, nobody had the exact same thing as me. I'm as unique as my fingerprint. They are too. And so I always tell people, don't compare, don't read studies, don't read about everybody else. And this takes me back to the genes. People will call up and say, you know, oh, well, my mother had it, and my sister had it, and my father had it. I go, but you're not them. And Peter Van Huel is one of my favorite doctors. He's kinesiologist. He's here in Winnetka, but he does. He completely doesn't believe in the whole gene and buy into that either. And Dr. David Servan Shriver also says, you know, doctors, the sad part is after we've changed our lives and we've turned ourselves inside out and become someone new, they don't take that into consideration. So there is that to be taken into consideration, is that we are not our genes. We are not defined by our genes. I didn't even have the gene testing. I don't have anyone in my family with it anyway, but who cares what my gene, who cares? I only know what I did, what I had, where it came from, why I got it, and now how to stay alive with it.
Yeah, I remind people all the time, it's genes load the gun, but it's diet and lifestyle that pulls the trigger.
Right, and I love that.
Well, your book can be an inspiration, and this has been great talking with you. I loved reading the book, and
Thank you for having
the
me.
book again is A Survivor's Guide to Kicking Cancer's Ass, which is just what Dena has done. And Dena, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
This
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been Feed Your Mind Wellness, and I'm Dr. Sandy.